After the crazy race we saw in Baku, I think the Austrian Grand Prix was always going to appear fairly quiet out on track. But James, I'm sure there were some key strategy decisions. Let's go to the start and almost before the race even began, because you knew you were going to face a 5-place grid penalty with Lewis early on, didn't you?
Absolutely. It's something we discovered after Baku. It's a shame. We really try our best to make sure we have a car that he's able to fight for the championship for, and we're able to fight for the championship for. But when you push everything to the limit, there are times where you push over the limit, and that's what's happened. Going into the weekend, we knew that we're going to have to approach things slightly differently. We knew that we have to fight through the field. 5-place penalty here does imply that you're going to be back in something between P6 to P8. That's the normal region we'd expect. And therefore, we changed the tyre we qualified on.
So as we can see, you opted to start on the super soft compared to everyone else around you on the ultra soft. Why did you make that decision?
We did a lot of work on Friday on all 3 compounds. And out of the back of that, what we concluded is that the top 10 will have to qualify really on the ultra soft tyres, the right tyre to start the race on. It was the fastest of the 3. It's a better tyre to work in qualifying. But what the benefits of the super soft were is it will allow you to run longer than the other competitors. And other competitors on the ultra soft will be fighting each other and stopping themselves shorter than where we're going to be going. So we need that tyre for resilience. There's a second reason as well. Whilst it didn't rain in the race, there was a lot of rain around. Just 150 kilometres away, there was a huge thunderstorm. And again, in that situation, having a tyre that provides you just a little bit of longevity so that you can cover off the chance of rain later on in the race could be very beneficial.
At the first corner, we saw Max Verstappen crashing off, a little bit of a collection of cars. Did that do anything to Lewis's strategy at that point?
That one actually assisted us a bit. 2 Red Bulls was going to be incredibly difficult to overtake on track. 1 Red Bull, if we were behind them, would have been slightly better. But ultimately, it was a car that was going to be very competitive in the race out. Lewis thought he had a bit of contact actually at that point in time, so we were urgently checking all the tyre pressures. As it turned out, everything was okay. Beyond that point, though, the effect more so was that Lewis still had to fight through Grosjean and Perez. That was one of the biggest impacts really at the beginning of the race.
A little bit later on, we saw Lewis up behind Kimi Räikkönen. You can see him there within the DRS range. And if it had arisen, there would have been an opportunity to pass. But then we almost saw him back off. Was that something that you instructed from the pit wall?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd already, before the races started, indicated to Lewis that the Ferraris are going to be very difficult, as were the Red Bulls as well, to overtake on track. And there's a finite amount of resource in a racing car. There's a finite amount of fuel, brake, and temperature control. And what we made sure we did is you want to use the resource correctly. So we gave him 4 laps to try and overtake Kimi. When he wasn't successful at that point in time, we made sure the systems were in a state that we could re-attack later on. And at the end of the race, we had a very strong racing car.
When pit stops finally started happening, you brought Lewis in, but much earlier than what the predicted pit strategies were saying. You brought him in on lap 31. Why then?
The original intention was to go long and to create opportunities, especially against Ricciardo at the end of the race. But what actually happened is Grosjean behind had cleared out of Kimi's pit window around about lap 30, and they didn't stop Kimi. It was a clear undercut opportunity, and it became clear at that point that they were intending on pushing him long, acting as a blocker relative to Vettel. And that gave us an opportunity to undercut Lewis and make sure that we definitely get the points from Ferrari and give Lewis those definite points on the table. And it still would have created opportunity against Ricciardo at the end of the race. So on 31, we came in. And what's then interesting is the chain reaction that then ensued. We had Ricciardo that had to cover us off within a few laps, and then Vettel who had to cover us off within a few laps. Where we then ended up at that point in time is with Valtteri. We had Kimi who had stayed out. Once they'd lost the window to us, they didn't really have any incentive to come in anymore now, and they were going to try and go as long as possible, purposely creating a blocker car for Valtteri. And then you had Vettel behind, who was just faster now than Valtteri, fresher tyres, closing back into what we call the pit stop gap. And what it meant is we're between a rock and a hard place to a certain extent. It's not a high-risk circumstance. We just need to stop Valtteri once we've extended the stint relative to Vettel, made sure we have nice, safe tyres for the end of the race. But it did mean we had to overtake Kimi on track.
Okay, so then let's look at the overall tyre strategies of the top 10. And the glaringly obvious thing is this soft tyre used by Felipe Massa. Soft tyre. Was it a race tyre?
Very, very interesting at this event. As we went into Friday, so if we remember P1, for example, we took the soft tyre with Lewis. We did a 5.9 on a soft tyre, fastest car on track. on the hardest compound. And in Austria, in a qualifying type condition, all 3 tyres were within a few tenths of each other, which is extraordinary. It hasn't happened so far this year. As you went into race runs, the soft still wasn't bad, but it was just a little bit slower than the other tyres. So for example, this one for Massa, he was quite a bit faster when he fitted the ultra soft later on in the race. But what's interesting out of it is it provided more life out of the other tyres. Again, when we spoke about it before, there was a chance of rain throughout the race. And that soft tyre would have allowed Felipe to go as far as he needed to. Let's imagine there was rain 3 laps before the end. That's the only tyre that you could have taken to do that. So a very good move by Williams overall. He had a great start and moved back up into a points contention as a result. However, ultimately, the fastest race there was the combination of the 2 softest tyres, the Ultra and the Super.
So we see Felipe using it in the top 10, only 4 sets used overall, and the rest obviously being used by the second half of the grid.
Absolutely. Julian Palmer started on it. With Hulkenberg, he was struggling a little bit on that Super Soft at the beginning of the race, and they decided to switch him over to that tyre. That was a good move. It was a faster tyre for him. The only downside is he dropped into a load of leader traffic, so lost a lot of lap time as a result of it. So the 2 Renaults really preferring that tyre. And again, there was other evidence throughout the field that for tyres stopping quite early, and this is quite early up here at this stage of the race, it was a better tyre overall for them, and they tried it. But within the top 10, as I said, once you're committed on that race and we could all go a sensible distance, the Super Soft and the Ultra Soft were better overall.
James, thank you so much for such a great explanation. I can't believe it, only a couple of days and we'll be in Silverstone.
Absolutely.
See you there.
Thank you.